We got ourselves an X-Men fan. Maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this.
Welcome to Popcorn and Prosecco, the movie podcast where we talk about movies. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about the Oscars and then roll into Logan spoilers. You might notice that Kristy Puchko is doing the intro this week instead of Perri Nemiroff. She did not die despite her claims if La La Land lost Best Picture. She's just very busy this week. Angie Han, my co-host, can attest to that.
Yes, Perry's definitely still alive despite La La Land. This isn't suspicious at all.
Super shady. But Perri will be back next week. But for now, we're going to roll in to talk about the Oscars. Specifically, we want to talk about Moonlight won Best Picture, which seemed improbable because from the first time we talked about Moonlight, we talked about the idea that it was this $1.5 million film. It was a film about a young gay black man who is trying to get out of like this metro bad situation where there's drugs and things, and he was trying to get out of this life and find a path. And it's a beautiful film, but it's not necessarily the kind of film that Oscar pays attention to because it isn't, a big blaring biopic with cheering moments and strings blazing. And it was something quieter and more challenging and just so beautiful. And so we're very excited. Angie and I were team Moonlight until Perri said that she would die if La La Land lost. And then we were kind of bullied into that position. But I'm really excited Moonlight won.
Yeah, okay, so I feel like so much of the talk has been about how it won, which is honestly the craziest thing I've ever seen in an award show in my lifetime. But yeah, once that shock wore off, it was just like you, it was just like, holy shit, I'm so excited it won. I don't think that it was considered like a massive upset. It was kind of like if people were basically like, La La Land's probably going to win, but if it doesn't, it's going to be Moonlight. But it's still I kind of resigned myself to it's okay, La La Land's going to win. That's the kind of movie that the Academy Awards all the time. And it's a good movie. I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, they rewarded like total crap,
Yeah, no, there was one point in the night where you started teasing me that Hacksaw Ridge could win because it started picking up awards, and I was livid. And then I actually went to bed Oscar night before they announced Best Picture because I was annoyed. And I was like, I don't want to see it when La La win Best Picture. And not even because I dislike La La Land that much. It's just that the vitriol from both sides about La La Land, I just don't like it that much. But there's people who are like, it's the worst and it's the best, and I find it all tedious, so I just didn't want to deal. And then I woke up the next morning to tweets from you and some of our friends that were so mysterious. They were just like, oh my God, what happened? Oh my God, Kristy's sleeping through this. Oh my God, oh my God. And so for 30 seconds after I woke up, I thought Hacksaw Ridge won the Oscar. And I was just like, fuck this Monday.
That's the best because the only thing that the way it happened, it's not like the most unlikely film won, which I guess would have been Hacksaw Ridge. It's just the way it won. But yeah, we didn't want to focus on that too much because we wanted to talk about how great it is that I fucked up. How great it is that Moonlight won because first of all, I know that people are just like, oh yeah, it's a drama about a disadvantaged person. It sounds like it clicks all the Oscar bait boxes, but it really doesn't. When's the last time that we saw a movie about a poor gay black kid get this far or even close? That's actually really remarkable. And then on top of that, as you pointed out, Moonlight is such a much more subtle film. That was one of the things that Mahershala Ali, I've been rooting through him this entire awards season. Mm-hmm. But one thing that in the beginning I was worried that he might have going against him is that his performance actually isn't that showy, and it's rare that Oscar rewards a performance that's that restrained and that kind of warm, and that doesn't have a big show reel throwing stuff at the window kind of moment. So it's to me it just feels like the little film that could, and it is a little film, as you pointed out. It's one of the cheapest films, and it actually has the lowest box office gross of any of the films. Hell or High Water was only $5 million more, but still, that's pretty impressive.
And it's also amazing because this is the first, gay movie that's won Best Picture. Mm-hmm. And someone also pointed out to me that a lot of films that are nominated, a lot of films that are about gay characters that are nominated for major awards at the Oscars tend to have them die. And this film doesn't. So
yeah, Imitation Game.
Imitation Game, Brokeback Mountain, Philadelphia, it's a theme where it's it's a little bit of Bury Your Gays, but this was just a movie that got to celebrate this character that everyone felt really connected to, and I thought the speeches that this cast gave were amazing. Ali was the first Muslim actor to ever win an Oscar, and I thought his speech was beautiful. The writer's speech where he didn't just speak for like black youth and gay youth, but also gender non-conforming youth, and I feel like that's an amazing thing to have been said on the Oscar stage. It was just really amazing, like catching up the next day with everything that I chose not to deal with in real time was overwhelming and exciting and such a joy. And I just want to throw out before we roll into Logan stuff that if you want to know more about all the things that Moonlight means historically for Oscars and for cinema, we highly recommend going to Screen Crush, where our friend Aaron Whitney wrote a piece called "Let's Not Forget Moonlight Made History in the Most Diverse Oscars Yet." They wrote a really incredible piece that breaks down all these incredible barriers that Moonlight knocked down, and it's incredible. I'm really overwhelmed that Moonlight won, and it's coming back to theaters, so this is also relevant. You can go back and listen to our episode. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what it is, but go to YouTube, Google Popcorn and Prosecco and Moonlight. We have the episode there, and it's coming back to theaters to celebrate its Oscar win. You should absolutely go. It is a movie unlike anything I've ever seen. Watching it was just surreal and strange, and I feel like people who watch movies as much as Angie and I do, it's hard to surprise us. And Moonlight was surprising, and it was wonderful.
Oh, that's really well said. I've already seen it, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm tempted to go back to the theater and watch it like a fourth time. But yes, so on that note, we're gonna talk about another movie that we really liked. Maybe not as much as Moonlight, but we did really like this one too. So you may remember that a couple of weeks ago, I think episode 149, we talked about Logan. That was right when the embargo lifted. So even though the movie wasn't out or even close to out at that point, we were too excited and wanted to get that out right away. But during that episode, we promised once the movie's out, you can come back and we will talk about spoilers. We will spoil the shit out of this movie and talk about all the crazy things that happen that you don't want to say to people who haven't seen it yet. So this is actually your spoiler warning for Logan. If you want a spoiler-free review, go back to episodes of 149 and you can find it there. But yeah, this is your final spoiler warning for Logan. We're gonna spoil the shit out of it. We're gonna talk about all the crazy shit that happens. So yes, all right, everyone gone? Okay. Perfect. So, Logan, he dies.
He died.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah, I feel like we kind of knew when Hugh Jackman said like, "Oh, this is gonna be the last Logan."
It was heavily
Wolverine
suggested.
Film. I was just like, yeah. I mean, because with a franchise like that, if you don't definitively kill off the character, people are gonna forever be like, "Well, what happened to him? Is he coming back? Is he coming back? What happens in the sequel? What happens in the future?" So I kind of suspected, but it's such a testament to James Mangold and Hugh Jackman and everyone else that made the picture that while I was watching it, even as I knew he was gonna die, I realized at one point that I had allowed myself to hope he wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then was devastated when he did, even though for like years in advance, I was like, oh, he's going to die.
Yeah. No, like as soon as they announced Old Man Logan, as soon as they announced Logan, a lot of people were being like, oh, he's going to die. And that was the assumption. But like watching this film, it's just, it's so hard because it's not even like he dies in in glory or anything. It's brutal and it's rough. Like he dies sacrificing himself, so there is glory to that. But it's not like in Avengers where you think Tony Stark might bite it and you know he won't because he's Tony Stark. When he like flies up to sacrifice himself and he's all hero, like this is bloody and brutal and upsetting and like through the whole movie, you know that Wolverine is already dying. Eventually, you learn it's because of the adamantium in his body is ultimately poisoning his system. You see all the scars, you see him breaking down, and like the whole thing is a meditation on his life and on where he was, and it's just devastating, and I don't know, man. Like I knew it was coming, and it still was so hard. And I just want to say, because I don't want us to forget to talk about this, when she takes the cross out of the ground and turns it so it's an X. Oh
my heart!
My God,
I know.
It's like it's kind of cheesy, but it's such a good image, and like I just thought it was.
Kristy, you're about to cry again, aren't you?
I really am. I'm still because okay. So when I saw the Logan trailer, the first ever Logan thing that they released, my heart stopped when I saw him burying something because my first thought was, that's Professor X. Professor X is going to die in this movie. And I remember realizing that and shaking. Like, it was just really upsetting. And he does die in this movie, and he dies so brutally too. And like, It's just
Oh, the way he dies is, if anything, like even more sad. Honestly, when I saw the first trailer, the part that really got to me actually wasn't the death, because at that point I'd expected it. But because the part that really devastated me was just how, like, the fleeting moments of, like, actual happiness that you see in the trailer, which is just so, now I'm getting emotional, which is like, it's just, we've been following this character for 17 years. We know a lot about his story. We know we can fill in even more of his backstory from the comics, and we know he's had a really long life and a really, really hard life. We know how, like, sad it's been and how just filled with, like, angst and self-loathing and terrible things, and then,
Yeah.
like, to see them get these, like, moments, these, like, final moments of happiness, even though you know it can't last. Like, oh god, I think that was why it crushed me so much, was because James Mangold finally gives Logan, like, what he didn't know he wanted but always needed, which is just a family, like like contentment, people that he actually can care about, and then he just and the way that he dies is, it's very, very sad, but at the same time there's something really beautiful about it. Like, there's something really, like, you just feel like this man is finally at peace.
Yeah.
He died
he
for
died
a cause
with
that
his
he
boots
believed in.
on. Like,
Yeah, he
feeding
died
into the
like
whole
he
Western
died
theme.
sacrificing himself for someone he cares about. Like, so it's as sad as it is. It's just, I cannot think of a more perfect way for a story to end.
It's totally true. And one of the things I really liked was I like how X-23 Laura, like, continues the legacy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I liked that in the first half of the movie she's basically feral. She doesn't speak except telepathically to Professor X. But then when Professor X dies and she realizes that she has to communicate with Logan, she starts to. But it's like it's rough. It's like she's so angry at him, and like I really like the way that relationship is built because it's never cute. They never reduce it to being something hokey and overly sentimental, and like it's this thing where it's like she's this child that he recognizes as his but like can't deal with, and she recognizes that in like biologically that's her dad, but then he doesn't want the responsibility and she takes that really harsh. And we talked about this a little bit about how the film uses the comic books to set up the idea of identity politics in the film, which is essentially that the kids that are part of X-23, they look at Logan, they look at the X-Men as like, if they can do this, I can get through this. And I just found that so incredibly powerful and beautiful because, I mean, I think we've all had those moments where you feel low and you feel like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't defeat whatever this is, whatever that obstacle is in your life. And then maybe there's a movie or maybe there's a celebrity or maybe there's a scientist or whatever who had a background like you did, who had a common interest that you have, and they made it work. And you think like, if they can do this. And so it's an interesting thing because these kids, in their mind, who Logan is someone who is fearless and who is brave and who is just the good guy. And then they meet him and he's so much more problematic than that. But like they make him they inspire him to try again. And like the whole thing.
Yeah. It's a movie that really understands, I think, like, why, to take it out, to remove it from just the movie and into our real world. It kind of understands why heroes are important. Like Wolverine, okay, he might not actually exist in our world, but it does. I feel like I love that the movie knows that it's playing with the character who's iconic. I mean, let's not forget, Hugh Jackman has been Wolverine through, let's count now, 3 different Spider-Men, 2 different Batman, 2 different Supermen, 2 different sets of X-Men, and 2 different James Bonds. Like, it is mind-boggling.
That's insane.
How long he's been around.
That's true.
It's been 17 years. So I really like that the movie, I think that the movie, first of all, I wanted to say that, yeah, I like that it kind of knows, like, this is an iconic character that we're dealing with, and I love the way that it kind of weaves that into the story so that it's very much in the fabric of the story and part of the point of the story. But I also, it's a movie that I think it's more standalone than most superhero movies, so I do think that you could watch it having seen none of the other ones, and it'll still make perfect sense, and you'll still probably find it, like, an exciting, exhilarating experience.
Mm-hmm.
But they do absolutely take advantage of the fact that we have such an intense and long long-standing emotional connection to this character. It makes it so effective. The same thing with Professor X. Like, we've loved him for so long, and to just watch anything bad happen to him is so upsetting. But before we run, well, not that we're that short on time, but I wanted to make sure we have plenty of time to talk about this. X-24.
What the fuck with
Holy
X-24?
shit.
Because, okay, so you and I saw the first act of this film back in December when they showed it at the Fox Showcase, and you and I were pretty stoked on it, but nothing in there indicates that X-24 is going to show up. And then I talked to comic book nerds, and they're like, no one knew X-24, because X-24 in the comics, like, there's like a door where it says X-24 through like X-50 or whatever, so so it left the metaphorical door open that there could be more things like Lara. But this it's especially because you go from the makeup of Hugh Jackman looking so old and so haggard, and then I believe they use a little bit of like CGI magic to make him look younger than he actually is.
They must, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so wild. It's they did it in Terminator Genesis, but it was a little janky. This is seamless to me. I thought this was like astonishing how good it looked. Like, it fucks with your head.
I will point out that some of that is because he's in the shadow a lot of the time. Some recent movies, Rogue One, could maybe take some lessons about how to like digitally create people and make them look real. Just saying.
Well, this is a total rebuild, though. They're not building, and
Still.
like Grand Moff Tarkin has cheekbones that defy the laws of nature, so that's tough.
Well, that's just true. But yeah, no, I mean, when I watched this movie and like, you know something's coming, something's up. But like when he's like revealed, like my audience just like gasped.
Yeah.
Like we're just like, what?
Yeah, and it's a big theater. You just heard all these people go,
but the thing is, it's an idea that is so perfect that in retrospect, I cannot believe like it wasn't obvious. Because like Logan's biggest enemy throughout all these movies has been himself. Like he's one of those like, he's a superhero with like, even compared to most superheroes, he has a lot of inner demons. He has a lot of regrets. He has a lot of like things that he like just feels terrible about. Yeah. He has like, he's always kind of been battling this like monster that he is inside him, or at least that he fears is inside him, and like and then this movie just makes that manifest. It makes it like literal, so that he's actually fighting like the worst projection of himself. And it's just like, when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, what a twist. And then I was like, oh my god, it's such a good twist. Like, I don't know how we didn't see it coming.
And thematically it works so well too, because like you pointed out, like X-24 is essentially symbolizing his past, because it is him and the rage and the feralness fighting for his future, which is not like his personal future, but his legacy of X-23 surviving and being able to be free. And like,
yes,
I was watching that and I was loving it so much. And there was like one part where it looked like maybe one of the other mutant kids or like someone else would get involved and actually defeat like X-24. And I was like, don't ruin this. And I was like so worked up about it. But I thought it was so good. I just, the movie's so smart. And James Mangold, like, he really thought about what this film was saying. And I think it's cool because like when I talked to him back in December, we talked, and at that point I had only seen the first half hour, but we talked about the idea of superhero movies. And one, he doesn't like that as a genre. He doesn't think that superhero movies have enough in common.
Yeah,
with
I got
each
that
other.
lecture too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a good point.
Yeah.
But I don't totally agree, because I feel like horror movies have a much wider span than people think too. So I think superhero genre is like the horror genre, where there's a lot of subgenres within that you can play in. But anyway, that's another conversation. But what he was talking about was how it's hard to make a superhero movie that needs to be, to make its budget back, needs to be successful in so many quadrants, that you have to like, that to make it say anything, because you have to have it like appropriate for kids, and you have to have it play wide enough to audiences no matter what their political beliefs or their religious beliefs and whatever. And it really makes it hard to say something that the studio is not going to be like, hey. But this is Wolverine. Like, they knew people would turn out for this. And thanks to the success of Deadpool, they knew they could get away with an R-rating movie. So they had a lot more freedom than you tend to see in these kind of movies. And you see that in the violence, and you see that in the cursing, and you see that in just how the film dares to be provocative. And I really think Logan is going to be one of the best movies of the year.
I mean, I will also point out, though, yes, to everything you said, there's also the fact that they knew going in this is going to be Wolverine's last movie. I feel because how many times have we watched a comic book movie where, as good as it is, you could tell they like left some plot threads dangling,
Right.
didn't wrap up some shit, like kind of like didn't progress the character too much because they knew they'd have to come back and be in the same position at the start of the next movie,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, and what I loved about Logan, among other things, is that it really feels like a movie that's not holding back. It really feels like by not feeling like it has to hew to all the kind of superhero movie yes, James Mangold has a point, but the fact is that most of the superhero movies we've seen follow kind of a similar formula. And I felt like Wolverine kind of just like looked at that and was like, nah, I don't need this guidebook. I'm gonna just do my own thing. And I feel like by doing that, it really expanded the ideas of like what a superhero movie could be. I'm not saying Logan is the first ever, but like the first ever superhero movie to like kind of do its own thing. But like for a mainstream blockbuster franchise to come up with a movie like this, like that's really unusual. Like as kind of quirky as Deadpool was, it still followed a lot of the same tropes, whereas like Logan really it does feel like a Western where some of the characters happen to have superpowers. And it's not that it's not relevant, but it does feel like it's just like, we're gonna do something actually different. And I admire that so much about this movie.
Totally. So yeah, we're saying the same thing we said last week, which is watch Logan. It's amazing. I'm probably
Bring
gonna go see it again this
tissues.
weekend.
Oh no, you've already seen it because you're listening to the spoiler section. So we don't need to tell you to see it or to
You know,
bring
I know
tissues.
some people though that because when I wrote my review for CBR and when we did the initial thing, I was like, look, for people that want to like know spoilers, and I shared some spoilers with some of my coworkers, and a lot of them wanted to know. So I think that some people listening might want to know what the spoilers are. If that's your thing,
Okay.
thanks for listening. But yeah, we're gonna be back next week. We'll have Perri back in the driver's seat probably, and
Totally alive and everything.
yeah, totally alive. We're not Weekend at Bernie's singing this. Now I want to Photoshop us all as Weekend at Bernie's. But yeah, Perri, you can find Perri at P Nemiroff, and she writes for Collider. Angie, you want to give your tag?
You can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and you can find my writing at slashfilm.com, and including a couple of interviews that I just did with the producers and director of Logan, so keep an eye out for that.
And I'm Kristy Puchko. That's at Kristy Puchko on Twitter, KristyPuchko. And you can find my career highlights at decadentcriminals.com. And we are on iTunes and YouTube. We're Popcorn Prosecco. We are on Twitter, at Popcorn Prosecco. Check us out. Share us with your friends. Obviously, you've checked us out if you're here. But like, comment, rate, review. That'll help us all. Sorry, guys. This is late. But thank you so much for joining us for our Oscar and Logan talk. And we'll talk to you next week.
She needs our help.
Someone will come along.
Someone has come along.